Yo guys, welcome back to the Otaku Taku podcast. It is now on into not January, it's June. So we're basically like 2 or 3 months into the podcast experience. In today's episode, we are doing our special thing like we promised. We are going over Classroom of the Elite. Jack, you've read the light novels and I have watched the anime, so that's what we're going to talk about today. Otaku Taku. So, after reading the light novels...
You have no idea how excited I am for this.
Ah, yes, indeed. I too am excited.
Before we get into all the juicy stuff, we kind of, for those who have never watched or read Classroom Elite, we kind of need to go over what it's mainly about. Why don't I cover over this? So basically, what Classroom Elite's about? It's about a average Joe named Ayana Koji Kiyotaka, and he is enrolling at this very special high school for supposed talented students, and he's going there to figure out how he can become a better person. And along the way, he starts to meet people and realize that his high school experience that he thought was going to be great turns out to be a huge test and also kind of an ordeal for those students, because they've had this structure of a system turned against them, and his class, which is one out of 3 other classes, has to figure out how they're going to have to outsmart the other classes in order to gain a higher position in the hierarchy of the school system.
Yeah, because originally he takes kind of a backseat role in the class like competitions and whatever. But like later on in like the show, he basically like tells other people that other people have been doing all the crazy stuff that's happened, but he's like really the one behind everything. And
I guess you could say that's kind of a spoiler if for people who have not seen the first season.
Yeah. But I mean, like, he's the main character. He's gotta at least do something. He can't just sit around and be an observer the whole time. Although that would be kind of interesting.
Yeah, he can't.
Because, like, if you had inner monologue of him that whole time, like you said, it is in, like, the light novels more so, it'd be interesting even if he was just an observer to see all that was going on and what his, like, opinions and whatever was about it.
That's kind of the role that he did play in the light novels. Well, one thing that the anime really, really cut out and that's missed in the anime is that the light novels feature a lot of inner monologue of Ayana Koji. For the most part, in like the first volumes 1 and 2, he's mostly just meandering and being like a doormat and seeing what other people are doing, kind of observing their actions to see and making judgments off that.
Yeah, like he didn't really.
But
like,
later on,
I remember in like the first episode where he's like he has to do introductions and he's like, my name is I don't really have anything particularly interesting about me, and then everybody's just like, welcome to the class!
Welcome to the class!
Yeah, and actually in the light novel, there were a couple of moments where Ayana Koji was actually trying to plan out how he was going to make a good impression, but it ultimately kind of backfired on him when he realized that he's hiding a lot of his talents, and because he's hiding his talents a lot, he's going to have no choice but to give a very, very underwhelming impression to his classmates.
Yeah. It was very underwhelming. Extremely underwhelming.
Epic gamer moves, am I right?
Yes. Epic gamer move.
Oh, what? So while we're going on here, why don't we talk about some of like the things that I think the anime does right, as well as the light novel. Let's start with the anime first. What do you think makes the anime in some ways unique? Like what parts of the story or its characters do you think makes it stand out from a lot of these other powerhouse high school anime and light novel?
I would say probably the biggest thing about the anime is how they like factor in the eyes in all like the shots and whatever, because the characters have like different shades of eyes throughout the whole thing, whenever they like show like different emotions and whatever, as we saw in the anime with the temper tantrum midway through from the
Is that in
blonde person.
Oh, you mean the? Oh, you mean Kushida?
Yeah, in like the it was like
That was more
episode
at the
3 or
beginning. That was
something.
like in
But
volume
yeah,
one.
but yeah, like
That was in like
her
volume
eyes turn
one. I
from
remember.
like orangish gold or whatever to like pinkish, like
Yeah.
it's kind of creepy, but
It was a very in the light novel. It played out a little. I think a little bit more detailed. I'm trying
yeah.
to find the picture. Yeah, picture right here. You can probably see it right here.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, right here. Hopefully, I don't get
He
we don't get flagged for that.
She tried to get him into a legal predicament.
Yeah, she was going to basically get him into legal trouble, like through false
Demonetized.
accusation.
It's going to get him demonetized. Demonetized.
Well, it's not
for
like
an
we make any
extended
ad
period of
revenue on
time.
here.
Well, yes, so we don't make any ad revenue.
Yeah. Yeah, and another thing that I find very special about the light novels. I think the anime sometimes does it. Mostly the light novels is that it shows the amount of psychological impact that the events of the story have on the characters. Like for example, when Chabashira Sensei, the teacher for Class D, she revealed to everybody the truth about the point system in the school, there was a lot of confusion among the students, and especially among the ones that had spent all their points. And so you start to realize the amount of desperation and the dose of reality that's been given to these students about a system that was once backseat, but then is now being a little bit more forward.
Yeah, because like all the students spent practically all their points on the first day. Like this one dude bought a gaming console
the
that
first
cost him
week.
80,000 yen out of his 100,000.
80,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like I think that 80,000 yen. That's like almost 780 US dollars.
Yeah. Because like they basically started off
That's
with, like,
that's even more
around
expensive than
1,000 or something.
yeah, that's more expensive than a PlayStation 4.
Yeah.
That's crazy expensive. But aside from that,
And it was just
and you said this earlier. There's,
it was a small Wizamagidget.
oh yeah.
Because
Another thing that
are like for gaming, and Gizmo widgets are for like cell phones, or either or. Doesn't really matter.
and like you said, Quinlan, about the emphasis on character emotions, it definitely ties into what I said earlier about the psychological impacts that the events of the story have on the characters. You see a lot of emphasis given. Like the anime does it pretty well. The light novel, you can't really tell too much about how the characters are feeling, but definitely in the anime, with the visual aspects, you can definitely tell how they're feeling just by the face expressions and the visuals alone.
There's definitely a lot of like hierarchy type stuff with the like class system, and that factors into like the characters' reasons for like taking action or not taking action.
And also
like,
how the events play out.
Yeah. Because like some of the characters
Great example
are
of
perfectly content with just not doing anything and staying in Class D the whole time, but they want to like build each other up or whatever as a class. Like the vast majority of the people in Class D are content with like staying in Class D, but they want to like overtake Class C, but that's basically their only goal. However, like Suzune and some of the other characters, like they basically are forced into going for Class A because of like their like Suzune's brother. Basically, he doesn't expect anything of her.
The student council president.
Yeah. And
remember that little scuffle that Aina Koji had with Suzune's brother?
Yeah, that was cool. He just dodges everything, and his eyes are just the exact same.
I'm suspecting that I haven't read any. I've only read to volume 4 of the light novels because that's all that's been translated up until now in physical copies in English. I am suspecting that Aina Koji is trained in martial arts. That whole piano and calligraphy event was just a cover up. I'm suspecting that he's especially trained in martial arts.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that because I've been spoiled. That's just a hypothesis.
Mm-hmm. I would also say that he did like swimming or something too, because in like the like pool scenes or whatever, he doesn't really like actually go in the water much to like swim. Like he gets shoved in the water, but like he's literally just doesn't do anything after that, pretty much, or like they don't show anything.
Actually, that was a little bit different in the light novel. In the light novel, that when they first went to the school pool, like the indoor pool, Aina Koji actually participated in that swim competition, the one that Koenji won. And Pseudo did pretty well. And Aina Koji, I think, placed 5th in freestyle. So he has a very good athletic ability. Yeah. He just doesn't really like to display it as much as Pseudo.
He didn't really try to get like first place or second or whatever. Yeah. But like
the reason why the school put out this was to prepare for that big reveal. Like the person that won, and Koenji won, he got those extra points. He got an advantage over the other students because when the students spent all their points, they wouldn't be getting any back unless they worked hard for it. So Koenji basically got a head start without even realizing.
You can get head starts on points in many different ways. Speaking of points, did you see the multiple million point thing in the anime when you watched it? There's like one of the characters has a phone with multiple millions of points on it.
I know him. Yeah, yes. Ichinose, yeah. The light novel, when Aina Koji was like interacting with Ichinose, I remember him commenting, "Is like that's a lot of points."
Yeah, because
he was like wondering how did you get that?
He was transferring like points or something for like something he agreed to like buy, and like
it was for Pseudo's trial.
Yeah, and I forget her name, but like she was from like class 2 or class B, but basically she had like she had like 2 million points or something, which they started off with 100,000 points. It makes you wonder how she got so many points in the first month of school. And either I would say that
that's like my
there's 2 things that it probably could be. One of them is from a comment that I saw on the video, and one of them is from my own like whatever like conclusion about it. My conclusion is that like her family's rich or whatever, and you can like your family can transfer in points, like, and you don't even have to worry about earning. Not necessarily that, but like you can just like transfer in points from like your family or whatever, or if she had like some sort of business or whatever. Which brings me to the second
that is a
comment.
Very good point.
Yes, some sort of business, maybe an OnlyFans account. Yup. That's what I saw in the comment section.
Oh my goodness.
Nice.
Which also, OnlyFans also kind of brings us to one of the other characters, Sakura. who helped out in the like trial kind of
Oh,
arc. Yes.
Sakura. Sakura. Yeah, yeah, speaking of OnlyFans, like I don't know if you've seen the anime, but when Sakura was in middle school, she was an idol known as Shizuku, and she went on hiatus for a decent amount of time because she was being stalked
Yeah.
by a random man,
By the
and
cashier.
that kind of carries over. Yeah. All I
Cashier
can say is in
boy.
the light novel that whole interaction between Ayana Koji and the cashier, like the initial
The
interaction,
initial
was a little
interaction.
bit.
Yeah.
It's about the same as in the anime, like when they were at the cashier desk
Yeah.
when Sakura's digital camera was getting
In the
fixed.
anime, that was pretty
Um,
interesting. It's almost like he noticed that the camera on the desk was recording or something. Basically.
and also one thing, and it's a little bit different in the light novel. In the light novel, when Aina Koji, he kind of has like a gut feeling that something's wrong. It isn't really
Yeah.
facts, or he's not reading like the expression of the cashier. It's more like he has a gut feeling that something's wrong, and it's also kind of, it also could be because Kushida and Sakura were acting kind of weird, mostly Sakura. But Kushida was also acting a little bit weird around the cashier guy, and so that kind of gave him a little bit of hints that something was wrong.
Yeah. It's all an elaborate
Yeah,
plot.
I will say, oh, that little correlation with OnlyFans, that was good. That was good.
Yeah. I
Hey,
don't
well,
claim I don't
hey,
claim credit for that, but it was a very funny comment.
oh yeah, you know what you should do? Okay, where is it? Where's that picture? Hopefully we don't get flagged for this.
We
Yeah,
shouldn't.
here you go.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
That should not be a flaggable
yeah, you may-
offense, considering some YouTube thumbnails.
What you should do is that you should find a picture of Sakura as Shizuku, and then Photoshop that into an OnlyFans profile, and then post it on like the
The
thumbnail.
thumbnail? Yeah, I might.
You should totally do that.
I tried doing the Lion King thing in the last episode with ReZero Frozen Bond, but I just couldn't find a good enough quality image, and it was gonna take too long to do it. So I just opted out.
Yeah,
of
you
that.
should totally like Photoshop Sakura's face and like as Shizuku into like an OnlyFans profile. That would make for like a
be
really
easy because
funny.
it'd be only like a like just a square that I could crop out of whatever.
Yeah, it should be easy to do. And anyway, like correlating back to like, why don't we start talking about like some of the characters, like specifically Ayana Koji. Ayana Koji definitely is a very interesting character so far. You don't really. He starts off as a standoffish kind of guy. He seems like an average Joe, but I think like right after his interaction with Suzune's brother, we start to realize that he's more than what you think he is.
Yeah.
There's an air of mystery surrounding his character.
Yeah, and the mystery stuff definitely is pretty interesting. Like, he has like flashbacks and stuff throughout it, which don't really give you much context, but like kind of show you that like he's had a rough kind of school experience up until like high school, which is why he wants to have like a normal high school experience. But he's basically being forced into like going to class A kind of.
And one thing, and the great thing about this whole air of mystery surrounding his character is that it slowly build up towards the last 30 seconds of the final episode of the anime. In the light novel, it would be like the first few pages of the first light novel, but in the anime, that whole big move by Ayane Koji, his little inner monologue in the last 30 seconds, that definitely had a lot of build up in the mystery surrounding his character.
Because that's at the end of the anime, but in light novels that's at the beginning. Is that of like
the light novel?
It's
It's like
something.
Actually, no. The anime only covers volumes 1, 2, and 3. Volume 4 is after the anime.
Okay, and it's after like that final kind of end scene. On like the ship.
It's after the island arc.
Mm-hmm.
But there is another. But after the whole island arc, another test occurs on the ship.
Ooh, another test.
And then it's summer vacation on the ship.
Yeah.
Yeah, and going back to Aina Koji's inner monologue, you definitely see a big change in his overall attitude towards the other characters. Like you definitely when I first read it in the light novel, like I think it was in the first few paragraphs, he kind of like tells the audience in his mind that he really doesn't care about the other people that he's met. He's saying as long as as I claim victory for myself, it doesn't really matter what happens to everybody else.
But see, like when every time like I'm watching an anime or whatever, like I always like I don't necessarily take their words specifically what they mean, because like you're hearing it in his like normal speaking tone or whatever. It's not like he has some sort of like inner like kind of malicious intent from what he said at the end. It's almost like that's kind of what he's like been told to do, but he doesn't want to do it, and he's not going to do it, or something.
Yeah, that's a good counter argument that you're providing.
Yeah.
And there's also other characters that are as equally interesting, like Ichinose, Suzune, and you could also argue Sakura.
Yeah.
Why don't we start with Suzune first? I will say though, one thing that made Suzune a little more memorable, in my opinion, was how she was portrayed in the light novel. In the light novel, she was a little bit more friendlier towards Aina Koji in the light novel. Like especially in the scene at the beginning where they were at the front of the school, she was a little bit more open about herself in the light novel compared to the anime.
Yeah.
And definitely throughout other parts of the light novel, you definitely see her open up a lot more and give extra details about her life to him.
Yeah, because,
and in the anime.
Because like in the anime or whatever, like she says that like she doesn't have any personality to hide or whatever, but like in the anime, it's kind of more like you see a side of her in the anime that you don't like see at the first few episodes, kind of, which kind of goes against what like is said or whatever. But if you say in like the light novels or whatever, there's more like friendliness or whatever, like more of like her character later on, then that would make more sense.
Yeah. She's definitely a little bit more friendly in the light novel. I mean, she still has that really kind of bitchy attitude, but she's a little bit more friendlier in the light novel, like a tiny bit friendlier.
Friendly, indeed.
She still has that same motivation to get to Class A that she has in the anime, but she definitely has a little bit different of a portrayal in the source material compared to the adaptation. I think that was a choice made by the production team to kind of change her character a little bit from the light novels, the adaptation.
Because they definitely wanted like it not to feel like a normal like high school class or whatever with some shallow like background, like, oh, you gotta get to Class A, you gotta be the best, and it's like okay. But
you definitely don't see that idea forced. It's mainly a choice that the students can make.
It's a choice that they can make, but they're forced into making it, which is why it's so cool.
Because I mean, yes, it's not really like it's not blatantly obvious that it's forced, but it's definitely going to provide a lot of necessary benefits for the class if everyone aims for Class A.
Mm-hmm.
And also, moving on, why don't we talk about a little bit about Kushida, my least favorite character in the light novel?
I would say I would say definitely like her character is kind of a side character, more so like just a random obstacle, I guess, or like a minor annoyance to Aino Kiyoshi. Because he's like absolutely not threatened by her, but she's like so threatening that like everybody watching would be like, oh my gosh, he could get in some serious trouble here, and it's like he doesn't care, and he's not going to even be able to get pinned down for anything.
She definitely gives off that 180 shit. It's almost like she has bipolar disorder or something.
Kinda, yeah.
180 out of her personality when it was in the first light novel when she kind of like revealed her true colors, and Ayane Koji was sneaking around after she had left.
Yeah. And I think it wasn't really surprising to him, because in like the first episode or whatever, he's kind of like I guess interested in like how she wants to be friends with everybody, and how like especially she takes like an interest in like his relationship with Suzune, and that's like why like she gets mad at him or whatever, like, and on like the ship or whatever, she like tells him stuff or whatever, like gets mad again, or yeah.
Yeah. Because I remember seeing that in the light novel, I was like, oh great, not that again.
Not that again, yup.
And when I initially watched Classroom of the Elite, I really did not trust Kushieda. I thought she was gonna. I guessed that she was gonna have like a dark side to her. I was right. Did.
Yeah. As is with many anime characters.
I mean, it's not uncommon for a lot of other side characters to have dark sides of their personality, and honestly, I kind of welcome that Kushida has this side of her personality. It makes her a lot more interesting of a side character than I originally thought her out to be, even though I didn't trust her character at the beginning.
Yeah.
And now we move on to my personal favorite, Ichinose. Like you said earlier, with like the amount of points she had,
Yes.
it definitely sets up a plot hole in the first season of a mystery about how she obtained so many points. That's definitely another key concept of the story that later be explained in the light novels past the anime. I still haven't gotten to yet.
Because I would kind of say that like there's a general like structure, like in season 1, like Class D is trying to be Class C, and they have more interactions between Class C and D. Like they've had like not necessarily like fights or whatever, but like even in like the filler episode with like the swimming pool or whatever in the summer, they're actually having like some disagreement or being involved in the disagreements between the classes or whatever, which kind of adds to the story a bit. But yeah, I'm thinking that later
One thing
on,
that I feel like the filler episode did right was that it definitely gave a little bit more interaction between some of the other characters, especially between the characters in Class B.
Yeah. Yeah, like,
it was also kind of funny seeing Ike and Pseudo kind of trying to go out with their plan, but I mean,
what were they calling themselves again for their code names? I forget. It's like
I forget. It's been a while since I've seen the anime. It's like October of 2019 was when I watched it.
They had like code names or whatever, and Ayano Kyoji was like their fourth one or something, and he was like their backup plan. And so like he is like involved in the plan to get a camera in the girls' bathroom at the end. But basically he like told Suzune about it beforehand, so they were able to like find the camera and take out the SD cards or something. So
ultimately they weren't successful.
Mission successful. However, mission failed. It's like that one like Wallace and Gromit animation type style thing with the pirates instead, where it's like,
oh yeah,
it's successful yet it's not, or something.
And yeah, I usually I get annoyed with filler episodes, but I think this was a filler episode done right, considering that there was a little bit of room left. I mean, the light novels wouldn't have been able to adapt 12 episodes completely, so they needed like time to provide more character
Yeah.
interactions and build upon more of the character relationships. I think this was what the filler episode did right.
Mm-hmm.
Also kind of intensified and I think this and one thing that's largely overlooked by a lot of fans of Classroom Elite is, especially in the anime, is the conflicts between the other classes, such as Class A and Class C.
Yeah, because like there's definitely like a picking order in terms of like which classes get like targeted by Class A and whatever. Because like Class B is relatively neutral. However, Class C like picks fights with them or whatever. Same with like Class A. And in season 1, like Class D isn't really being targeted. However, I think that's probably going to change because they won that one major test at the end of the season.
Yeah, and that conflict between Class D and Class C intensified after that second test on the boat in Volume 4, which you haven't read.
Yeah.
Of Class C, Ryuen, he starts to set his sights on Class D after Suzune starts to be more of a influence
Like
in Class
like
D.
the figurehead kind of Class D. Because like Ayano Kyoji still isn't like publicly like the dude behind everything, but yeah.
Yeah, he's letting Suzune take the credit, but he doesn't have an issue with it.
I thought an interesting part about like the series and like the anime was like on that hospital style bridge or whatever, where the school like class person or whatever, like Suzune's brother, like he offered Ayano Kyoji for like the position or whatever, and he refused. And yeah, that was interesting, because if he really is trying to win, he could have just gone for that position. But for him, like winning is just experiencing a normal like high school whatever, and there was nothing normal about him being suggested or like proposed that position. Like he wouldn't normally get it, basically.
One thing that I will point out that I think the light novel definitely has over the anime is that it definitely has a lot of extra character interaction. And especially between Aina Koji and Hirata. You know who Hirata is, don't you?
Hirata isn't that a teacher? Or I don't know.
Hirata is he's the very popular boy. He's like the one of the big figureheads of Class D.
Oh, is he the like class leader dude from like the island? With
that's
the
something that I really
situation. That's another good situation.
Which one?
The like the one where like they're separating their tents from each other or whatever. It's like no boys on this side, and it's like you got to go through all your bags.
Oh my.
That was
okay. I'm gonna tell you, in the light novel, everybody was crazy in that. There's like mass hysteria going on because Ibuki was sabotaging Class D by stealing Karuyazawa's underwear, Hirata's girlfriend. This causes a lot of mass panic among along the boys and girls of Class D. And one thing that Ibuki does to worsen that hysteria is putting Karuyazawa's underwear in Ike's duffel bag, because Ike already has a bad reputation for being a pervert in Class D, but Ibuki did that to sabotage Class D and kind of use Ike's already bad reputation as a weapon against Class D, just to put them into disarray and conflict.
Mm-hmm. Disarray and conflict, or so it seemed. The major players in Class D, however, had everything figured out, pretty much.
Yeah. And back to what I was saying earlier about the interactions with Aina Koji and Hirata. In the light novel, I don't know if it was covered in the anime or not, but in the light novel, Hirata made many attempts to try and befriend Aina Koji whenever he can. There were a lot of attempts of that missed in the anime, but in the light novel, there were a lot of interactions between Aina Koji and Hirata about them trying to make a connection.
And maybe that's because, like, he isn't, like, a main person in, like, the Class D. So, like, she thought that, like, if she talked to him or whatever, she could, like, be entertained, I guess, while she waited to make moves or whatever. And that, like, he wouldn't, like, notice anything or something. And instead it was, like, the very opposite of that.
And also, one thing I think I would like to cover about the light novel. Do you remember in Sudo's trial arc where Sakura's stalker confronted her?
Yeah.
And I think in the light novel, it was that whole situation where Ichinose and Aina Koji came to Sakura's rescue. It played a lot differently in the light novel, and let me explain. So in the light novel, Aina Koji threatens the cashier to ruin his reputation if he tried to go near Sakura again, and then the cashier just ran away, and that was it. Nothing else happened.
Yeah, in the anime, like, he actually gets arrested. Because, like, Aina Kyoji basically says, your life is over.
Yeah, the anime kind of, like, overstepped that little, I mean, that whole cashier guy seemed like, in the anime, and not in the light novel, but in the anime, he seemed like one of those people from those r/nice guy stories.
Yeah. I don't know of those, but, probably has some.
So you don't know that subreddit?
No.
There's some spicy stuff in r/nice guys. You should totally check out that subreddit.
I might.
Yeah, that cashier guy in the anime reminded me a lot of somebody from r/nice guys.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and I check my phone real quick. Definitely, and while I do like Classroom of the Elite, there are a little bit of complaints that I do have with the anime, and that's, like I said, there's a lot that was missed in the adaptation from the light novel. If you really want to get the full experience of Classroom of the Elite, I recommend you read the light novel. I would only recommend the anime if you want, like, a basic summary of what the plot is. If you really want a deep experience in the story, just check out the light novel. There's also one scene that was exclusively in the light novel that wasn't in the anime. Is that the reason why Aina Koji started aiming for Class A is because he was blackmailed.
How was he blackmailed? That sounds interesting.
In the light novel, there was a meeting that Aina Koji had with Chabashira Sensei, and she basically tells him that when she was a student in this school that he's attending now, she was never able to go to class to reach for Class A, and so she threatens him with expulsion if basically he makes her dream come true in his place, which is already a bad thing to do, considering you're forcing your own student to achieve your unrealistic dreams.
I think there was something similar to that, like, scene in the anime, but it sounded like more like outside like, I think she said, like, outside forces or something would, like, force you to do it, like, achieve Class A, or like you'll lose your freedom or something. It was like an Icarus reference with Icarus and Daedalus.
Yeah. But in the light novel as well.
But yeah, like, I think the reason it's not in the anime is because it's basically saying the same thing as that scene. However, it's just at a different place in the like anime. Like maybe that initial one was like too soon in the series or something. Like the director felt. Like it was too soon.
I think that and another complaint that I have with the anime is that it sometimes doesn't really do its characters justice, especially Suzune. Like in the light novel, she definitely was a little bit more friendlier, but in the anime, I feel like she was like sometimes a really bitch.
Kind of.
And there was also some times where the characters were acting a little bit out of place, especially Kushida. I think the light novel kind of made things a little bit smoother with the interactions.
Mm-hmm.
And last thing that we could probably talk about before we end, actually two things left to talk about before we end the podcast is that, okay, who do you think is your favorite like female character, like male and female character in this series?
I would probably say favorite female character is Suzune, just because she has like the most screen time, and in terms of like a memorable character, I guess. Because like I would say Sakura, just because of like her interactions with Ayano Kyoji. That's kind of I kind of ship that, but yeah, I would say Suzune. And
Yeah, there were some subtle moments of affection between Aina Koji and Sakura, but for the most part, Aina Koji doesn't really see Sakura as a potential romantic interest. Even in the light novel, he really wasn't that attracted to her. However, if I'm going to start with my favorite male character before I go to my favorite female character. My favorite male character in the series is it's a tie between Aina Koji and Hirata. The reason why I say Hirata is that in the light novel, there's definitely a lot more context to his character, because when he was in middle school, one of his close friends was bullied basically to death, and he was unable to. He chose to not stop the bullying, and so he feels like he needs to atone for what he did in middle school by not helping his friend. And so by giving this context in the light novel, I think it was in volume 3, definitely added more weight to his actions and his overall reaction to the events that happened in Class D on the Island arc. So that's why I liked his character a lot in the light novel. And his character didn't really do much justice in the anime. And now to my favorite female character, which is probably what you're all probably asking for. You probably saw this coming from a mile away. It's Ichinose.
Mm-hmm.
And you'd think it'd be Suzune, but actually no, it's Ichinose. And the reason why I say that is because I've actually changed a lot as a person. I've kind of like changed who I see as a potential romantic partner. Like even fictional characters, like if they have like specific characteristics I find attractive, of course I'll be attracted to them. I mean, you'd be doing the same thing, wouldn't you, Quinlan?
I would say so. I will leave that to
the reason why
much speculation.
Yeah, but I guess the reasons why I'm kind of like really attracted to Ichinose is that she kind of displays a lot of the of attractive traits that I've come to actually appreciate more, and that's like confidence, charisma, charm, and also a greater sense of emotional stability. There was one scene where she was very unsure. That was like the whole confession scene with that other girl from Class D.
Yeah.
However, I think that's mostly being experienced with romance.
Mm-hmm.
For the most part, she's actually kind of like my
OnlyFans
also
increases.
One thing that is actually in volume 4, the light novel head of the anime, is that Aina Koji actually in his little inner monologue thoughts, kind of like has hints of attraction towards Ichinose, and not only because she's just drop dead gorgeous, but because she's like this really charming person and has the ability to draw people in with this charisma that she has.
Yeah. But
And lastly, the last thing I think we're going to talk about is like, if there was ever, would you think that a season 2 would ever happen? If there were, how successful do you think it would be?
I think a season 2 definitely probably would be on the table, considering it's Kadokawa is behind it, because they do quite a lot of stuff. They're not necessarily like a small company.
I mean, they have the rights to ReZero.
Yeah, like they've got ReZero, they've got plenty of other shows that like I've seen behind stuff. Like they have ReZero, Overlord. They've got so many things. But yeah, I'd say that's
Kadokawa owns
likely.
so much anime in Japan.
Yeah, they've got like YouTube channels or whatever. They get exclusive stuff going on. Like they're pretty much set over there.
And if the rumors of a season 2 are true, this could potentially be a very big excitement for the community that I've like waited like 3 years for an anime to come.
Yeah.
For a season 2 at least.
I definitely think any initially popular series could come back as like with a season 2, even if it isn't as popular as the first one is. Yeah.
Yeah.
However,
it also
the 3
depends
years is
on,
definitely a major roadblock.
And that's like one of the biggest downsides to having a season 2 is that many people could have forgotten about Crossing the Elite, so many people would not be aware about the return of it as a second season. The light novels have only started getting translated in English. Like this first volume came out in January of last year.
Yeah, like that's pretty recent.
Long it's been. Yeah, and volume 4.5 comes out this month. I think in like a few days, but I'm waiting until volumes 5 and 6 come out. That way I can binge read it.
What's 4.5? Is that like
overall, I'd say Classroom of the Elite is definitely a very interesting psychological thriller set in a high school. It definitely gets you thinking. It's very entertaining. It has quite memorable characters. Its story isn't really it isn't really like too engaging, but it definitely gets you thinking. I would definitely love to see a season 2.
It definitely gives them an endpoint, and then you're basically there for the journey to the endpoint. And yeah.
There may not be a definite conclusion, but the journey there is what really matters.
Yeah. Like, even if there was never a conclusion or whatever, because they're there for 3 years, and season 1 covers like basically their whole first year. So like
it only covers 1 semester.
Yeah, like 1 semester. But do they like start in their semesters in the winter in Japan, or is it like early fall? Like
they start their semesters. They start their semesters in like the winter.
Yeah, so that would be like half a year kind of, and then summer break.
And three volumes have covered half a year.
Mm-hmm.
I think in Japan, Classroom of the Elite's up to volume 10 in the light novels, and I think it's still going. And I don't think it's been losing its popularity lately, so I think it's still maintained its story quality.
That's good. Just imagine
I'll definitely
continue when it's like, oh, school's over, you gotta go off to life or whatever, and they didn't have time to get to Class A. Like, it's something that
I'll definitely be reading a lot more. I'll definitely be reading the light novels into the future because I'm still very invested in the story. I can't wait to see where it goes with the development of Aina Koji, because he's definitely one of the most interesting protagonists I've ever seen. He doesn't really let a whole lot in to the audience, but later on, man, he really picks up. And especially in Volume 4, he definitely shows a very confident and very aggressive side of him.
I wouldn't necessarily say aggressive. I would just say more like active, I would guess.
Assertive.
Yeah.
Assertive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but and this is like after the animes, but there is a moment where he's a little bit more aggressive with his motives.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if there's ever a season 2 made available and produced to our audience, I'd definitely be down to watch it again.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know, like, what do you think of the series overall, Quinlan? I haven't really heard you talk about it.
I thought it was
that much.
definitely a fun watch. Like, I watched it in like 2 days or something. Like, it was definitely enjoyable enough that I was like, I've got to like see the end of this, kind of. Which is basically all.
I don't think it was. It's not groundbreaking. It's not groundbreaking, but it's definitely very entertaining and gets you thinking.
Yeah.
I think that's where appropriate time to end the podcast.
Yep.
So our next podcast should be up in like the next 2 weeks, and we're definitely going to be having a little bit different of a review. I'll give you a hint. Our next podcast will be an anime from Studio Shaft.
And what one is that? You'll have to tell me after. Okay. But
I'll tell you after.
That's it for the Otaku Taku podcast this week. Please join us down on Discord or whatever. If you guys watched till this far in, you must be pretty invested in these series. But it's been us, I guess. I usually say it's been me, I guess, at the end of my videos. But that's it for the
if
Otaku
you're
Taku
definitely
podcast.
interested. Yeah, definitely. If you're interested, definitely support Seven Seas. They've done a very good job translating the series. So yeah, definitely good props to them for their releases on the light novels.
Okay. Well, that's it for the Otaku Taku podcast. We'll talk to you in the next one.